Good morning, everyone. This is Mike Bevilacqua, the Vice President of the Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce. I want to thank you all for joining us for the Next Generation Leaders program. Earlier this month, we had our annual Next Generation Leaders Conference with Congresswoman Laurie Trahan. That's available on YouTube or on our website, merrimackvalleychamber.com. If you missed out, make sure to check it out. We're very excited to be back today with our NGL Roundtable. You're probably not all sitting in our circle here. We're just going to pretend we are because it's our NGL Roundtable program. We have great mentors, great speakers, great people who have opened their own businesses and who have been successful working through struggles, working through challenges, and who become leaders themselves, presenting today, who I'll introduce in a second. But before I do, I would like to thank our sponsor, TD Bank. TD Bank has continued to sponsor the Next Generation Leaders Series. Even through this pandemic, they believe in promoting young people in business. So I want to thank TD Bank. And I believe Parker is here to say a few words to get started. So with that being said, I'd like to thank Parker, thank TD Bank, and I believe Parker's going to say a few words now.
Mike, thanks for the introduction there. And I just want to say thank you so much for having me today and giving me the opportunity to speak, represent TD Bank. TD is happy to sponsor this program and happy to sponsor the Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce. Obviously these are crazy times. I'm sure we're all sick of hearing it. We're all sick of hearing that it's unprecedented, but it's a fact. And I think in times like this, the importance of the Chamber of Commerce, it's never been more important. TD Bank has always had a relationship approach to banking. And I think right now it's really being emphasized. Relationships have never been more important for businesses. Your relationship with your banker, your relationship with your CPA, and your relationship with your attorney. There's just so many things to navigate between PPP loans and all the changing rules around ordinances about reopening and what phases you need to be in and what you need to accomplish to keep your employees, your patrons, everyone safe. And so, now's the time to really leverage those relationships. So if you have any questions about banking or anything like that, please feel free to reach out to anyone here at TD Bank, myself included. And we are here to help you. And thank you so much. I look forward to this presentation. I was checking out the kettle pizza ovens, and I was like, I need to get one of these for my grill. Those pizzas look amazing. So
thank you for the plug.
I will have you know that I cooked on a kettle pizza yesterday.
Well, with that being said, I sort of feel like a lunch now I'm hearing about kettle and pizza. But with that being said, I would like to introduce our two speakers, George Peters and Chris Donovan. Like I said, they both opened a number of businesses themselves. They have a lot of leadership example. I also want to thank Parker and TD Bank yet again for their sponsorship today. We appreciate that. But with that being said, we're going to continue our NGL Roundtable series today. And I'd like to introduce our speakers, both Chris Donovan and George Peters. So thank you both for joining us today.
Chris,
Yeah, go ahead, George.
Well, you're the senior of you and I by at least a year. So,
Senior in age, is that it?
I left that open. You could senior in experience and in age if you'd like. But you certainly go first. I think I went first the last time.
Okay, I'll go for it. So, Michael, you'd just like us to do just a little bit of a background and what we've done over the years? Is that what you'd like us to do first?
Yeah, why don't you tell us both a little about yourself, just introduce yourself to the audience, and then we'll get going from there.
Okay, great, thank you. So my name's Chris Donovan, and I've been working in the entrepreneurial space for about the last 25, 30 years. I've actually had I think a somewhat interesting career in the sense that originally, way back when, I was an educator. I actually was I have a master's degree in special education, and so for the first 7 or 8 years of my career, I was a teacher. Transitioned into much different pace and much different focus. I moved into working for Raytheon for 15 years. I headed up a business development group and client and customer relations across Raytheon's various divisions, and then eventually into the corporate entity. And so I had a lot of experience, both domestic and international business, building international business groups for Raytheon. And then subsequently after that, I left Raytheon and I started my first company, which was an event marketing company that I founded with two other partners. And so we scaled the company, we grew it a little bit, and moved on. Actually, I sold it, and then I moved on to working for some other folks and doing entrepreneurial types of activities. And then I got the bug again, and that was in 2006, and started the second company. That was a different experience in the sense that it was angel-backed and venture-backed initiative. So we had investors. We launched it in 2006, and then we had the experience of having to close it in 2008 during the pretty interesting economy, which was obviously everybody remembers 2008. But what I will say is that both situations were very much a real learning experience, because I learned as much even in the one that failed versus the one that I was able to grow. So there's learning on both sides, and you carry that with you moving forward. So over the last 10 years, I've been working in the insurance world, both business insurance, employee benefits, and HR. And I've been working with entrepreneurs all around the region. And I actually co-founded a group called the Startup Coalition, and we actually stage monthly panel events for entrepreneurs, and we also do pitch reviews. So very much engaged. At any one given time, I'm probably working with 3 to 4 to 5 new entrepreneurs on a regular basis. And so extensive experience trying to help companies scale. And, you've learned a lot, so I have a pretty good feeling for where an entrepreneur is in their life cycle and the types of things they need to be thinking about. So thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Chris. All right, Michael, as you know, and to introduce myself, George Peters. Right now, I'm the principal of Gemini Eyes, LLC. Co-founder with Al Contarino in 2010 of Made in America Kettle Pizza, which turned your grill into a pizza oven, charcoal or gas. And Chris, and thank you very much for the plug that you cooked on yours yesterday. So Father's Day, next to Christmas, is one of our biggest times of the year, certainly going into the summer. So, but a little bit more. I'm also the president now of the Inventors Association of New England. We're one of the oldest associations in the country, where we help people that want to turn their idea into a patent and then into a product for possibly sale or for manufacturing themselves. I've been an independent inventor for the last 25 years, since 1995. I received my first patent on April 1st, 2003, and it has not gone unnoticed that it was awarded on April Fool's Day, 2003. So I have a lot of stories to tell about that also. But right now I try to help and guide individuals through the somewhat very difficult task of getting a patent awarded and seeing how they can monetize from that. There is a lot of companies out there that charge a lot of money before they give out any information. Myself, through Gemini Eyes, and I have some partners and associates and inventors of New England that we are able to assist people in that world before it can cost them a lot of money. Right now, also, as part of when Al and I started Kettle Pizza, which we started, Mike, as you know, in the workshop next to his barn in Boxford in 2010, selling 10 or 15 of them the first year and then growing. We became a client of Amplified Insurance Partners, where Chris is now, and I know he was a client of them when he had his businesses. And Amplified being very innovative and very forward-thinking with helping developing businesses, established businesses, manage the critical back-end information and of risk management when you're developing a product and building a company, everything from HR services, payroll, risk management, They were a key partner of ours as we grew Kettle Pizza. And when we started dealing with the Ace Hardware and Walmart and international customers, it was very important to have experienced team of Amplified behind us to take care of all of that back end things, so Al and I could concentrate on the front end things, which was developing more products and expanding the brand of Kettle Pizza, which when we moved Kettle Pizza up to New Hampshire in last September to join our steel partners, we had sold Kettle Pizza direct into people in more than 70 countries. So we're pretty proud of that. I've had the pleasure to speak at the United States Patent Office, Babson College, undergraduate and graduate programs, UMass, many times at UMass Lowell, and in Haverhill now. And Michael, I believe, quite a few times probably for the chamber at different events on the challenge it is to bring a product to market from an idea and all the ups and downs that come with that. So right now I have an office at the Innovation Hub, which Michael has been to, seen you at many events there, Michael, on the 3rd floor there. So I invite anybody to contact myself or Chris there, which I share an office with Amplified Insurance and my partners from Archimedes Offspring, which are a product development company in Denver.
That's great. Obviously you're both owning your own businesses and starting from the ground up. Leadership has been a big part of your business in your own personal growth. You've dealt with a lot of diversity and you've dealt with a lot of hard decisions. What is the keys to being a leader in your minds, and how can someone develop that?
I think for me, Mike, it was to not be afraid to ask for help. It was really comes down to and not being afraid to ask it, and then keep trying to find where you can get that help from. There are just so many resources out there for people who want to start a business, have an idea, they want to see if they can build a business around an idea. But for me, it was really started with the people locally, and then I found experts wherever I could and asked them questions until they told me they didn't have any more answers. And you can't be afraid to ask questions or seek out help. I think that's the biggest thing nowadays. People feel maybe a little shy about asking somebody for help, but I found, Mike, as soon as you ask somebody for help, they were always very open to help you. They wouldn't offer advice right off the bat. Maybe they were just kind of waiting for an opening themselves. So it should be, the entrepreneur that says, I need help. Can you help me? And somebody will say, if I can't, maybe I know someone who does. And that's how you build the connections, for your business as it grows. At least for me, it was.
Thank you. And Chris?
Really, really important to build your network, to surround yourself with people that can become mentors. If you can find a mentor or mentors, I think that's very, very important. The community, the startup community in the greater Boston area is extremely strong. And I think many, many people will be willing to help you. You just need to reach out. You need to build your network and build your connections. Communications is extremely strong. You need to be a good communicator. But I think also, like George said, don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid to make mistakes, because that's how you learn. And I just think it's really important to surround yourselves with people that have been there before, have done it, and also have the connections. Don't try to build something by yourself. Reach out to people and seek help, seek opinions. I think it's critical that you don't do this in a vacuum, that you build your relationships and you learn from just having discussions with people. I think that's incredibly important. But also, I think you need to, if you're going to be doing this yourself or with another partner, a launch partner, you need to be very cautious about who you're partnering with. I think it's one of the things you need to be thinking about as you move forward. And I know that George made the right decision when he and Al partnered together to launch Kettle Pizza, because I worked with them so closely over the years. They were great partners. They both had very different skill sets, and I think it worked very, very well.
That's, if I could kind of segue on that, the experiences that Al had with having a business before, and myself that had limited business experience, and inventors a lot of times get blinded in the development of the product and forget about very important things, finances, supply chain, all the other things that it takes to build a business. So to Chris's point about, partnerships, critical that you try to have a partner, if you can, that is stronger in something else that you aren't, and vice versa. That was the key for us. And, Kettle Pizza continues to grow. Probably had one of the best springs in Kettle Pizza the last 3 or 4 months, with everybody being home. Everybody wants to doing a lot more things at home, and certainly enjoying their backyards more and things like that. So, there's opportunities that come up everywhere, Mike. As you know, sometimes when, maybe not for, you can't see them right away sometimes, but for entrepreneurs, you can rest, but you have to keep going if this is the world that you choose that you're going to be. It's not always going to be the great days, Mike, as you know. You've known me for a long time. They,
for sure.
yeah, the ups and downs are there.
And going off what you're saying right there, a lot of the people on this call are starting to be in a role where they have to make a tough decision. Obviously, the coronavirus has made a lot of decisions even harder. What advice do you have for people for making those tough decisions in business?
Chris?
In relationship, Michael, to what's going on right this time. So it is a particularly difficult time if you're an entrepreneur to try and find funding. It's not to say that it's possible. I think you need to be thinking about, what is your service, what is your product, what's the practicality of it, entering into the marketplace at this juncture, at this time, depending on what it is, depending what the service is, what the product is, and where you're taking it, whether it's a business-to-business product or whether it's a business-to-consumer product. There are folks that are willing to invest, but I think you really, it may take a little bit longer right now because of what's going on, and hopefully that will improve with time. But, I'm seeing companies that are receiving funding. They are receiving, their angel investors are really willing to invest, and then also the venture capitalists in the area are still investing. So I think it's possible. And I think you need to really, really work at what you're doing with your product and how you're going to take it to the market. But also, if you are seeking investors, you got to be seeking the right types of investors, and you need to be able to go to those investors with the right message. You get one opportunity, as George knows, and I know because I remember him going out for pitching Kettle Pizza to do some funding, and you need to approach the right types of people, and you need to do it in a way that's appropriate.
Thank you. And George, I'll ask you a little bit different part of that question is, in terms of general business making decisions, what advice do you have for people that would be making those tough decisions as well?
Well, if you're by yourself, like I was for the first, 15 years before I met Al, it was difficult sometimes because I was also, starting a business on the side and working full time. Sometimes it took me longer than it should have sometimes, Mike, to make a decision that maybe if I had a partner or to seek out counsel, I made some wrong decisions, sometimes based on um, being excited at a possibility and spending some money I didn't have. And then other times it made me then hold back a little when I should have jumped into something. So you have to mix the right type of excitement and caution in when somebody, especially right now, is looking to maybe grow their business. You have, I know of several people in the Merrimack Valley area, Chris and I, when we kind of targeted the Merrimack Valley area as certainly a growth area starting last fall. There were a lot of companies moving to the Merrimack Valley. Um, really kind of want to get established here because people before everything happened in March were moving away from Boston, moving away from 128, found that the Merrimack Valley was an excellent place to start a business or expand a business because of our labor force, easy access to highways, space was still affordable around here for commercial space and some retail space. So there's a lot to digest with your business, and you have to really. I can't go stress it enough to find experts. Mike, early on, I joined the chamber because I wanted to learn as much about business as possible. Never had problem coming up with the ideas, but what to do with them from a business standpoint. For the product development world, there's so much information out there from a variety of sources. It's very hard to sort through who are the good guys and who are the bad guys when it comes to ideas and product development. So I can't stress it enough that really look around you close. There's probably people closer to you than you think that will help you make a decision. And you have to make a decision sometimes. You can't stay dormant and not do anything, or you just won't go anywhere. And if you, there's a saying, Mike, that I heard a while ago, and I really like it, is, fail fast. Find out what doesn't work and then move on. Don't try to dwell on it. I did that a couple of times where I spent too much time going down a certain road, and I should have maybe stopped halfway down and turned around before I spent resources, time, and money on places that I should never been in the first place.
Yeah, and that actually leads into my next question. So thank you again both for that great advice. My next question is, whether you're a banker, whether you're a restaurant owner, whether you're a retail store owner, or a leader in general, sometimes you're going to deal with adversity. What advice do you have for people who are becoming leaders on dealing with adversity in business?
Chris, you want to go? Or do you want me to take that one first?
You can take it, George.
There's always opportunities, Mike. There will continue to be opportunities, down economies, up economies. Starting a business now, you're really going to have to have some grit in sticking it out right now. I see in people that I've talked to that have other established businesses that were going very good, have to be able to pivot. You have to be able to change pace. You have to be able, it still comes down to accommodating your customer. Because you might have less of them and not as many of them right off, you still have to accommodate your existing customers, stay in touch with them, see how they're doing, see if they're coming back. If you're a restaurant, I've seen a lot of restaurants in the area being very innovative on how they're keeping engaged with their customers. The customers that would come, 2 or 3 times a week to a restaurant and really let other people know how good your place is. Those are customers you never want to lose touch with, and you try to do as much as you can to retain them and then be ready for them when they come back. I think that the places now that make their employees as well as their customers come back to work in places that are clean and safe, and employees know that their employers really do have their best interests at heart. We're the ones that will first you have to survive something to thrive. And I think the businesses that are able to hang on through this and get back their customers, I think we'll find that their customers will come back pretty quick if they're doing everything they think is right to ensure their safety and the safety of their staff. People will come back, I believe, stronger.
I agree. So George, as you know, and Michael, we service a lot of clients in the employee benefit space and business insurance as well. I'd say probably 50 to 60% of our clients were impacted in some fashion or form, at least. There were a lot of furloughs, there were a lot of layoffs. And I think what was critical was that the business leaders be able to communicate with their employees in an appropriate fashion. If you were able to do a furlough with the intent that obviously the employee come back, maybe they kept their benefits in place as much as they could, but it's also, you know, they need to build that bridge for the employees so that when they can reopen and get start thriving again, they're able to bring that employee back because they kept that connection. They tried to really work with them as much as possible. But I agree with George. It's also critical that companies are communicating appropriately, whether it's in the retail space or hospitality space. It's the ongoing communication and the appropriate communication, whether it's for a business-to-business setting or in the retail sector. It's reaching out and having that dialogue and that conversation in an appropriate manner and in a way that you can keep that loyalty of the client coming back, the customer. So I think it's critical is communications and appropriate communication.
Thank you. I've heard you both talk in this interview right now about finding a mentor. If you were someone who's starting out in business or someone who's even becoming a leader, what qualities would you look for in a mentor? If what would you recommend someone to look for in their own mentor?
I know for me, Mike, early on, trying to find people who were inventors already or had developed products was hard at sometimes because it's not a wide open world that people would think of. When I started developing products, the internet is certainly not what it was now. 1995, it was still developing. It was still the wild west of the internet early on to find information. It's a lot easier now to find information about what you're about to go into, and finding those mentors. I started locally, Mike. I joined the chamber. I did.
Yeah.
Because the local people I knew, people that knew me, is where I grew up. So finding local people that could help me, that I knew that were successful already, being that they owned a business in downtown Lawrence or in the Merrimack Valley, I would talk with them and see if they could give me, some pointers or leads to which way to go. That was very important to me. Finding people that were experienced, they're all around us. I know when I get contacted now, I just tell people the story of how difficult it's been for me and how that is, I just tell them my story. I usually never hear from them again, or I hear from them all the time because they want to ask me more things, because it's not easy. Chris or I would never sugarcoat it and say that taking the leap to being an entrepreneur and things like that is easy. Your family, if you do have one, will be involved, even though that you don't think they're involved, because time that you will be spending working on your business will be time away from your family. And that will be also a pressure that people don't expect sometimes, is that how much time it's going to take and commitment it's going to take, that other things will have to be put aside at times. And if you're not willing to do that, hopefully you have an understanding spouse that knows that you might have to be places that and not at home or not at a special function sometimes. So your mentors could come from inside your family. or they could come from certainly far away. They are there to help you. And it all goes back to asking again. And, people will help you if you ask them. They really will.
Yeah, it's interesting, George. I think it was 1995, I think is when you first started. I actually left Raytheon at the end of 1996 and started my first company. And what I quickly discovered when I stepped outside of working in the corporate setting was I didn't know anybody. And I mean, I just knew people in the corporate setting and that was it. And so it was shocking and it was really, really intimidating. But I also joined the chamber, and interestingly enough, I actually attended an event at WPI out in Worcester, and it was all focused around entrepreneurship. And I happened to bump to a guy that served on their board out there, and he was a person that was working with entrepreneurs, and he actually met with me separately, and then he said, look, come on, I'll connect you with people all over Boston, all around the region. And he spent the last 2 years, and I think Steve Davis, who was the executive director of Startup Coalition, and I worked with for many years. But Steve was good enough and nice enough to help me meet people in the community that had positive and had really been successful at launching companies. And that was critical, was finding that person to be able to open the door and introduce you to all different types of people. That's the type of person you need to find.
Thank you. As we close out the interview today, I want to thank you again both for joining us. I just wanted to ask you both one last question, and what advice do you have for people who might be becoming leaders right now? What advice might you have for them? If we haven't discussed it already.
I think if somebody was right now, there's still a lot of opportunities out there, Mike. I think that there's more opportunities than people realize right now because we're still, I think, kind of staggered by the old standing 8 count. Everybody's taking a shot. Everybody's had to take a step back and reassess of what's going on in people's lives, from maybe returning to work, maybe not. If you believe in what you have, whether it's a product, yourself, and you're still thinking about it, you'll never get over it. So there's going to be a lot more opportunities to start anew for people now. This is like the biggest do-over in history. We get to invent a whole new world again. So, okay, we're certainly a lot far along than 200 years ago, invented a new world. And I think that don't be afraid, be cautious, but don't be afraid. Because if you have the itch to do it, give it a try. Just give it, remember about the failing fast. Try it. If it keeps working, you know that there's a lot of support out there now. But I would always encourage people to follow their dream. If you've got a dream, follow it, or you might regret it for a long time.
Thank you. And Chris?
I agree with George. If you have a passion for something, you have an idea, don't be afraid to fail, because you're probably going to fail, or you have to pivot, or you'll have to change direction. The one thing I will say to entrepreneurs and business leaders, you have to be able to accept change and embrace change, because change is just happening so quickly, and if you want to be successful, you need to be part of it, and not afraid. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. And again, find people that can help you. Surround yourself with people that know a lot more about what you're trying to do than you do. I think it's key.
Perfect. Well, I want to thank you both for joining us today. It was a great talk, and you both have been through it all, and we hear a lot about successes, but everyone's had their failures. I think that's how people learn from those and are able to grow their businesses that way. So I want to thank you both, George and Chris, for joining us today. We really appreciate it. As I mentioned, the Merrimack Valley Chamber Next Generation Leaders Roundtable Series is going to continue each and every month. I want to thank TD Bank, our sponsor. I also want to thank our NGL ambassadors, Rebecca Furtado, Daniel Sarkis, and Ryan Pellerin, all for helping put these programs together. But again, thank you to George and Chris. That was tremendous. They're always going to be there if anyone has any questions about business or growing in general. So thank you both for being there for everybody and for the talk today.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Parker from TD Bank, and certainly, Michael, anybody that wants to contact Chris or I, feel free to give them our contact information. You have our contact information through the chamber. We're happy to talk with anybody about anything that we can help them with.
Perfect.
Absolutely, I second that.
Thank you both again, and have a great day, everyone. We appreciate you joining us.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Parker.
Thank you. Take care. Thanks, Parker.